Classification X, the human variable. The Galactic Assembly's Classification Committee was in session for the 43rd Standard Cycle, and Ambassador Trellax was fighting to stay conscious. His membranous eye coverings fluttered as he struggled against the soporific effect of Administrator Voldax's monotonous recitation of planetary hazard indices. Class 7. Extreme Gravitational Anomalies. Class 8. Toxic Atmospheric Composition. The vast chamber housed representatives from over 300 sentient species, each seated according to their biological requirements. Some floated in suspension tanks, others perched on thermal platforms, and a few existed as consciousness projections housed in mobile units. All shared the same glazed expression of bureaucratic tedium. And finally, Voldax's vocal sac inflated with what could only be described as bureaucratic pride. We come to our newest classification, Class X, Evolutionary Death Worlds. The chamber stirred. Classification X was unprecedented. Only one known inhabited world currently meets these criteria, Voldax continued, activating a holographic display at the center of the chamber. A blue-green sphere materialized, rotating slowly to reveal familiar continental patterns. Sol 3, locally designated Earth. Trellax straightened in his suspension harness. Like most in the assembly, he had heard rumors about the humans of Earth, but official contact had been limited to diplomatic channels. The statistics scrolling beside the hologram were disturbing. As you can see, Voldax's tendrils gestured at the data. Sol 3 presents a unique case study in evolutionary extremes. High gravity, atmospheric oxygen concentrations at combustion levels, temperature variations exceeding survivability parameters for 89% of assembly species, and persistent exposure to ionizing radiation. A Medusan representative's crystalline form shimmered with confusion. How could sentience evolve in such conditions? That, replied Voldax, is precisely why we've established Classification X. The humans haven't merely survived these conditions. They've adapted to thrive within them through a process they call evolutionary pressure. Rather than developing specialized adaptations to specific threats, they've evolved generalized resilience that makes them. He paused, searching for appropriate terminology, uniquely durable. Footage began playing of humans engaging in recreational activities that elicited gasps from the assembled dignitaries. Individuals hurling themselves from great heights attached to elastic cords, deliberately exposing themselves to extreme temperatures in what appeared to be pleasure rituals, and consuming substances that would be classified as toxins on most worlds. They consume capsaicin for enjoyment. The Varetian delegates' feeding appendages curled in horror. That's a neurotoxin. Indeed, Voldax confirmed. They appear to have evolved to convert pain stimuli into pleasure responses under controlled circumstances, a phenomenon their scientists call hormesis, becoming stronger through controlled exposure to threats. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembly. A species that derived pleasure from pain, that sought out danger rather than avoiding it, and that had evolved on a world where everything, from microorganisms to the planet itself, seemed intent on killing them. This brings us to our current situation, Voldax continued. The research outpost on Novus Prime has gone silent. 3 recovery teams from member species have been dispatched. None have returned. Trellax felt his respiratory rate increasing. Novus Prime was supposed to be a controlled environment, a research world with moderate conditions suitable for most assembly species. The human diplomatic contingent has offered assistance. Voldax's voice carried a mixture of relief and apprehension. They'd proposed sending a specialist, a single human, to investigate. One individual. The Cephalon High Counselor's neural cluster pulsed with skepticism, where entire teams have failed. They insist one is sufficient, Voldax replied. Their representative arrives tomorrow for mission briefing. Dr. Ilara Hayes had spent enough time among aliens to recognize when they were afraid of her. The subtle shifting of appendages, the increased distance they maintained, the way environmental controls were adjusted whenever she entered a room. all signs that despite diplomatic pleasantries, most assembly species regarded humans with the caution typically reserved for unexploded ordnance. She didn't blame them. Evolution on Earth had created organisms uniquely suited to persistence. Humans didn't have the strongest exoskeletons or the most potent venom or the most specialized adaptations. They simply refused to die when the universe suggested they should. The mission briefing room of the assembly station Harmonious Exchange was designed to accommodate diverse biology, which made it comically oversized for a single human and the station's xenobiological liaison, Dr. Xelvar. The research station on Novus Prime was established to study rapid adaptation in non-sentient organisms, Xelvar explained, his translucent digits manipulating the holographic display. 17 researchers from various assembly species, standard check-ins every 30 hours. They went silent 8 days ago. Ilara studied the rotating image of Novus Prime, a world of dense jungles and shallow seas, oxygen-rich but otherwise unremarkable. Environmental hazards. None that would threaten an assembly research team. Xelvar's compound eyes fixed on her. The planetary defense systems showed no unauthorized spacecraft. Whatever happened, it originated planetside. Indigenous life forms. Cataloged and contained. Mostly herbivorous megafauna and aquatic filter feeders. Nothing that would pose a threat to a secured research facility. Xelvar hesitated. The recovery teams reported unusual behavior among the local wildlife before communication was lost. The creatures appeared to be fleeing from something near the research station. Ilara nodded. Prey species behaved similarly on Earth when apex predators entered their territory. I'll need unrestricted access to the station's systems when I arrive, and permission to collect samples. Granted, though I must express concern at your insistence on going alone. Dr. Hayes, the Assembly would prefer to send a mixed species team with you. With respect, Doctor, mixed species teams have already failed, and a single human presents a smaller footprint, less chance of contaminating the evidence. She smiled, knowing how assembly species interpreted the expression. Besides, I work better alone. The truth was more complex. Humans had learned through bitter experience that their natural resilience often made them less cautious than necessary around alien threats. But equally, they discovered that in truly dangerous situations, non-humans frequently couldn't keep pace with humanity's adaptive response speed. In emergency scenarios, protecting less resilient team members often proved fatal for everyone involved. Very well. Xelvar's appendages fluttered in reluctant acquiescence. The transport leaves in 3 hours. We've prepared standard equipment according to your specifications. One more thing, Ilara said. I'll need unrestricted access to the files on the research being conducted at the station. All of it, not just the publicly available data. Xelvar's chromatophores flickered with surprise. The research is classified at the highest levels, and now it's potentially compromised. I need to know what I'm walking into. After a moment of internal deliberation, Xelvar nodded. I will request emergency clearance, but I must warn you, some of the research may be unsettling. Ilara smiled again, this time without warmth. I evolved on a death world, Doctor. Unsettling is what we call Tuesday. The descent to Novus Prime was uneventful, though the automated shuttle's environmental controls seemed determined to compensate for what it perceived as a human's fragile biology. Ilara finally overrode the system after the third time it attempted to increase ambient oxygen levels to what would have been flammable concentrations. She reviewed the research files during the journey. The Novus Prime team had been studying accelerated adaptation in local species, particularly focusing on a phenomenon they called evolutionary leapfrogging. The ability of certain organisms to rapidly develop complex adaptations in response to environmental pressures. Their findings were fascinating, if disturbing. Species on Novus Prime appeared capable of incorporating genetic material from predators directly into their own genomes, not through standard evolutionary processes, but through some kind of accelerated horizontal gene transfer. The implications were significant enough that the assembly had classified the research at the highest level. The shuttle landed in a clearing 2 kilometers from the research station. Assembly protocols prohibited direct approach to compromised facilities, and Ilara had agreed to the precaution. If something dangerous had emerged from the research, she preferred to encounter it on her terms. The jungle of Novus Prime enveloped her as soon as she stepped from the shuttle. Dense vegetation in impossible shades of blue-green stretched in every direction, punctuated by massive trunk-like structures that resembled Earth's fungal networks more than trees. The air was thick with moisture and carried complex organic compounds that her suit's filters struggled to categorize. Ilara activated her comm unit, haze to harmonious exchange. I've landed safely and am proceeding to the research station on foot. Acknowledged, Doctor. Selvar's voice crackled through the speaker. Sensor readings show active life signs in your vicinity, but nothing approaching your position. The wildlife appears to be avoiding you. Ilara checked her surroundings. The jungle had indeed fallen silent around her, creating an unnatural bubble of calm. That's interesting. Local species shouldn't have evolved fear responses to humans. Perhaps they recognize you as an apex predator, or they're already fleeing from something else. Ilara adjusted her equipment and began moving toward the research station. I'm proceeding with caution. The journey through the jungle revealed more anomalies. Vegetation showed signs of rapid growth and decay, with some plants appearing to evolve visible adaptations even as she passed. A vine-like organism developed thorns in response to her proximity, while funnel-shaped flora closed protective membranes over their central cavities. More concerning were the animal tracks. The ground near the station was crisscrossed with prints from creatures that, according to the database, shouldn't exist on Novus Prime. Predatory morphologies, some bipedal, all showing evolutionary characteristics that combined features from multiple species. The research station itself appeared intact when Ilara finally reached it. No structural damage, no signs of forced entry. The main doors responded to her emergency access codes, sliding open to reveal dimly lit corridors powered by backup systems. I've entered the facility, she reported. No visible damage, but primary power is offline. Switching to internal sensors. Her helmet display activated, overlaying thermal and biochemical readings onto her visual field. The station was not empty. Multiple heat signatures registered in the central laboratory, showing movement patterns that matched no known assembly species. As Ilara approached the lab, she noticed something else, a scent that cut through even her suit's filtration. A familiar scent that triggered instinctive responses deep in her human brain. It was the smell of an apex predator, not alien, but disturbingly familiar. The laboratory doors were sealed but damaged, forced open from the inside rather than breached from without. Beyond them, in the shadows of emergency lighting, something moved. Something that should not exist on Novus Prime or anywhere else in the galaxy. The creature turned toward her, and Ilara found herself staring into eyes that reflected millions of years of terrestrial evolution. The eyes of a perfect predator created not by nature, but by science gone catastrophically wrong. Apex logic. The predator paradox. The creature facing Ilara was a biological impossibility, a chimeric amalgamation of predatory traits from across the evolutionary spectrum. It stood on powerful digitigrade limbs, its body covered in a shifting pattern that suggested active camouflage. A crown of sensory appendages framed a face that combined mammalian and reptilian features, with eyes that held disturbing intelligence. But what froze Ilara's blood wasn't the creature's alien aspects, it was the unmistakably terrestrial elements in its design. The killing efficiency of a big cat's musculature. The problem-solving adaptability visible in its frontal cortex development. The opposable digits that spoke of tool use. Haze to harmonious exchange, she whispered into her comm. I found our problem. The research team wasn't studying local adaptation. They were attempting to engineer the perfect predator using genetic material from multiple worlds, including Earth. The creature tilted its head, studying her with predatory calculation. Its nostrils flared, sampling her scent. Dr. Hayes, Selvar's voice was tight with tension. The classified files indicate Project Apex was theoretical only, a modeling exercise to understand evolutionary constraints. Well, it's not theoretical anymore. Ilara maintained eye contact with the creature, recognizing the hunting behaviors hardwired into Earth predators. Breaking eye contact would trigger a chase response. They've created something new, a hybrid predator incorporating traits from multiple apex species, including human. That was the most disturbing realization. The creature's eyes held an intelligence that went beyond instinctual hunting. There was problem-solving capacity there, strategic thinking, the same cognitive advantages that had allowed early humans to outcompete physically superior predators on Earth. The recovery teams likely became test subjects. Ilara's mind raced through evolutionary game theory. Each new prey species would provide new genetic material, new adaptations to incorporate. Its learning, evolving with each kill. The creature suddenly tilted its head at a different angle, a gesture so human-like it sent chills down Ilara's spine. It wasn't just studying her, it was listening to her communication, processing her words. It understood. I need to know exactly what human genetic material was used in this project. Ilara kept her voice steady, maintaining the bizarre standoff with the creature. What specific traits were they attempting to incorporate? A moment of silence. Then Selvar's voice returned, strained. According to the files, human persistence hunting capabilities, problem solving, and what, Doctor? Social cooperation behaviors, pack hunting strategies. The implications hit Ilara like a physical blow. It's not alone. The creature made a sound then, not a roar or a hiss, but a complex vocalization that echoed through the laboratory. A call, a summons. From the shadows of the surrounding facility, answering calls emerge. 2, then 5, then more, a pack of engineered apex predators, each slightly different as they incorporated new genetic advantages from their victims. Hayes, you need to evacuate immediately, Selvar urged. We'll send a combat team. No, Ilara interrupted. That's exactly what they want. More diverse prey, more genetic material to absorb. They're treating this as an evolutionary arms race. She took a careful step backward. The lead creature tracked her movement but didn't advance. It was assessing her, categorizing the threat she represented. Dr. Hayes, these creatures have killed 3 fully equipped recovery teams. You cannot possibly. You're missing something fundamental about these creatures, Ilara cut in. Something the research team missed too. There's a reason they've incorporated human traits alongside traditional predatory adaptations. She reached up slowly and disengaged her helmet seal, removing it despite the station's potentially contaminated atmosphere. The lead creature's sensory crown flared in response to her action. What are you doing? Selvar's voice rose in alarm. Testing a theory. Ilara inhaled the station's air directly, filtering it through her own biological systems rather than technology. On Earth, apex predators recognize other apex predators. They avoid unnecessary confrontation through display behaviors and scent markers. The creature before her growled, a sound that combined elements from a dozen different terrestrial and alien predator species. But it didn't attack. Instead, it maintained distance, continuing its assessment. These creatures have human cognitive elements. They understand risk assessment and cost-benefit analysis at an instinctual level. Ilara continued. They're trying to determine if I'm worth the risk as prey. She reached slowly into her equipment pack and removed a small canister. The research team underestimated their creation because they fundamentally misunderstood why humans became Earth's dominant species. It wasn't our physical adaptations. With deliberate movements, she activated the canister, releasing a synthetic compound into the air. The pack reacted immediately, sensory appendages flaring in agitation. That's adrenaline and cortisol, human stress hormones, she explained to Selvar. But I'm not exhibiting stress behaviors. I'm displaying calm confidence in the face of a threat. The lead creature took a step back, confusion evident in its posture. On Earth, predators evolved to recognize not just physical threats but psychological ones. Ilara continued. A prey species that doesn't behave like prey triggers caution. But these creatures have another limitation the research team didn't account for. She stepped forward, and remarkably, the pack gave ground. They were engineered to be the perfect predators, incorporating the most efficient hunting traits from across the galaxy. But evolution doesn't optimize for perfection. It optimizes for good enough within environmental constraints. Ilara advanced again, maintaining unwavering eye contact with the lead creature. Humans aren't perfect predators or perfect prey. We're perfect survivors. We evolved not to be the strongest or fastest or most lethal, but to adapt to any threat through behavioral plasticity. Where these creatures are specialized for killing, we specialized in never staying the same. The pack was retreating now, moving back into the shadows as Ilara continued her advance. Their vocalizations had changed from hunting calls to warning sounds, alerting each other to an unpredictable threat. I'm accessing the station's environmental controls, she told Selvar. The research notes indicate these creatures were designed with specific atmospheric tolerances. Unlike humans, they haven't evolved to handle rapid environmental changes. Her fingers flew over the control panel she'd reached. I'm going to create a pressure differential that will drive them toward the containment facilities in the East Wing, then seal them inside. Dr. Hayes, Selvar's voice had changed, carrying a new note of something that might have been respect. The station's systems are badly damaged. You'd need to manually override safety protocols from multiple terminals simultaneously. Fortunately, Ilara replied as alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Humans evolved to solve exactly these kinds of problems under pressure. What followed was a deadly game of environmental manipulation. Ilara triggered atmospheric changes throughout the station, creating corridors of tolerable conditions that funneled the creatures away from escape routes and toward the reinforced containment wing. When they attempted to double back or outsmart her herding tactics, she adjusted, improvising solutions that countered their increasingly desperate evasive behaviors. 3 hours later, exhausted but triumphant, Ilara sealed the final bulkhead, trapping the entire pack in facilities designed to contain exactly the kind of dangerous organisms they represented. Containment confirmed, she reported to the increasingly incredulous Selvar. All specimens secured. I'm accessing the research logs now to determine exactly how this happened. The logs told a sobering story. The assembly scientists had indeed been conducting theoretical research on evolutionary optimization, creating models of hypothetical apex predators by combining advantageous traits from across known worlds. But they had underestimated two critical factors: the adaptive potential of Novus Prime's native microbiome, which could facilitate genetic transfer between species, and the danger of including human adaptive traits in their models. They were trying to understand what made humans dangerous, Ilara explained as she prepared the station for the arrival of an assembly containment team. They incorporated fragments of human DNA into their theoretical models to study how our evolutionary adaptations might manifest in purpose-built predatory organisms. But how did theoretical models become actual creatures? Selvar asked. Novus Prime's microbial ecosystem found the incomplete genetic templates in the station's waste systems and did what it evolved to do: facilitated horizontal gene transfer between species. It created what the models only described. Ilara's voice was grim. The irony is that they were trying to understand what makes humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and in doing so, they proved exactly that point, but not in the way they expected. I don't understand. What makes humans dangerous isn't our physical capabilities. It's our cognitive flexibility, our ability to understand threats and adapt our behaviors accordingly. She gestured to the containment wing where the creatures now paced in secured habitats. Those creatures are physically superior to humans in every measurable way. Stronger, faster, more lethal. but they're still limited by their own evolutionary programming. While you are not, Selvar observed. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day in 1,000 different ways, Ilara replied. We didn't become dominant by being the best at any one survival strategy. We became dominant by being able to change our strategy entirely when circumstances demanded it. She finished downloading the research data and prepared for extraction. The Assembly has been classifying planets based on their environmental hazards, but you've been asking the wrong question all along. It's not how dangerous a world is that matters, it's what kind of species that danger creates. When Ilara Hayes returned to the Harmonious Exchange, she found a significantly altered reception. The fear was still there in the body language of the Assembly representatives, but it had transformed into something more complex, a respect born of deeper understanding. In the aftermath of the Novus Prime incident, Earth's classification was formally updated in the Assembly records. It remained a Class X world, but with an addendum that Trelax found himself reading repeatedly in the following cycles. The danger of human beings is not that they evolved on a death world, but that they created a civilization to spite it. Their threat profile is not defined by physical capabilities, but by their unique approach to survival. Adaptation through behavioral plasticity, rather than biological specialization. In assessment scenarios, never evaluate humans based on what they are, but on what they might become when circumstances demand it. Their evolutionary history has optimized them not for any single environment or threat, but for the capacity to continually redefine what survival means. The Assembly had encountered many species from challenging worlds before, but only humans had walked alone into the most dangerous jungle in the galaxy and made everything else run from them.